Picture this. You're 17 years old. It's your high school graduation day, the day you've worked toward for 4 long years. You're an adopted child who's overcome every obstacle life threw at you. You've earned your spot on that stage, but when you walk up to receive your diploma, something unthinkable happens. You're rejected, turned away, humiliated in front of hundreds of people. Your adoptive parents sit in stunned silence. Your classmates whisper. Your heart breaks into a million pieces. But here's the thing about life. Sometimes when one door slams shut, another one opens in ways you never could have imagined. 1 week later, a limousine pulls up to your school, and everything changes. If you want to hear a story that will restore your faith in humanity and show you that sometimes the universe has bigger plans than we can see, then you need to stick around for this one. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment about a time when rejection led to something better in your life. Trust me, you're going to want to hear what happened next. Main story, my name is Sarah, and I want to tell you about Marcus Thompson. Now, Marcus isn't my son by blood, but he's my son in every way that matters. We adopted Marcus when he was 8 years old from the foster care system. This boy had been through more homes than most people change jobs. He'd been rejected, abandoned, and let down by adults who were supposed to protect him. When he came to us, he was quiet, guarded, and honestly, a little broken. But you know what? Love has a way of healing wounds that seem impossible to mend. My husband Robert and we didn't have children of our own. We'd tried for years, gone through all the heartbreak that comes with infertility. When we decided to adopt, we knew we wanted an older child. Everyone told us we were crazy. They said, take a baby, start fresh. But something in Marcus's file photos spoke to us. Those eyes, they held so much pain, but also so much hope. The first year was rough, I won't lie to you. Marcus would flinch when we reached out to hug him. He hoarded food in his bedroom because he wasn't sure there would be another meal. He'd have nightmares and wake up screaming. But slowly, day by day, month by month, we showed him what unconditional love looked like. We showed him that family isn't about blood. It's about choice, commitment, and never giving up on each other. By the time Marcus hit high school, he had transformed into this incredible young man. He was on the honor roll every semester. He played varsity basketball. He volunteered at the local food bank because he understood what it meant to be hungry. He had friends who loved him, teachers who believed in him, and a future that looked brighter than any of us had dared to hope. Senior year arrived, and Marcus was accepted to 3 different colleges with partial scholarships. We were so proud we could have burst. This kid, who had been written off by the system, who had been labeled as troubled and difficult, was about to graduate as valedictorian of his class. The speech he had written for graduation brought tears to my eyes. It was about second chances, about the power of family, about never giving up on your dreams, no matter where you come from. The night before graduation, Marcus sat at our kitchen table. The same table where he'd done homework for 4 years, where we'd had countless conversations about life and dreams and everything in between. He looked at Robert and me with those same eyes from the photos, but now they were filled with gratitude instead of pain. He said, "Mom, Dad, I know I'm not your biological son, but you saved my life. Tomorrow, when I walk across that stage, it's not just me graduating. It's all of us. Everything we've built together, everything we've overcome, it all leads to this moment." I had to excuse myself to cry in the bathroom. This child, this beautiful soul who had been rejected and abandoned so many times, was about to achieve something that seemed impossible just 9 years earlier. He was going to graduate not just as any student, but as the valedictorian, the student chosen to represent his entire class. Graduation morning arrived bright and sunny. It was one of those perfect May days that feels like a gift from heaven. Marcus put on his cap and gown, and I swear he looked like he could conquer the world. We took pictures in the backyard, by the tree where he used to sit and read when he first came to us. He was nervous but excited, ready to give his speech and start the next chapter of his life. The ceremony was being held in the school's football stadium. Hundreds of families were there, everyone dressed in their finest clothes. cameras ready to capture the moment their children receive their diplomas. Robert and I found seats near the front. We wanted to get the perfect shot when our boy's name was called. We had invited Marcus's former caseworker, Mrs. Rodriguez, who had placed him with us. She was like a grandmother to him now, and seeing him succeed meant everything to her. The ceremony began with the usual pomp and circumstance. The principal gave his speech about bright futures and endless possibilities. The class president welcomed everyone. Then came the moment we had all been waiting for, the presentation of diplomas and Marcus's valedictorian speech. Students began walking across the stage in alphabetical order. Anderson, Baker, Collins. We sat there beaming with pride, counting down the names until we got to Thompson. Marcus was sitting with the other honor students in the front row, his speech folded neatly in his hand. He kept looking back at us and smiling. This was his moment. Our moment. Finally, the principal reached the T's. Marcus Thompson, A, caught it out. My heart swelled with pride as Marcus stood up, straightened his shoulders, and walked toward the stage. This was Italiano. The moment that would cap off 4 years of hard work and prove to the world that this adopted kid from the foster system could achieve anything he set his mind to. But as Marcus climbed the steps to the stage, something was wrong. Instead of the warm smile the principal had given every other student, his face was stone cold. Marcus reached out his hand to receive his diploma, and the principal pulled it back. "I'm sorry, Marcus," the principal said into the microphone, his voice carrying across the silent stadium. "There's been an issue with your transcripts. We cannot present you with your diploma at this time." The stadium went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Marcus stood there, hands still extended, confusion written all over his face. "I don't understand," he said, his voice barely audible, but somehow the microphone picked it up. "My grades are all in order. I'm the valedictorian. I'm supposed to give this speech." The principal shook his head. "I'm afraid that won't be possible. Please step aside so we can continue with the ceremony." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. I watched as this confident young man, this boy who had overcome so much, seemed to shrink before our eyes. His shoulders slumped. His head dropped. The speech in his hand fluttered to the ground like a broken dream. The stadium remained silent. Parents looked at each other in confusion. Students craned their necks to see what was happening. And Marcus, our Marcus, stood there alone on that stage, rejected once again in front of everyone who mattered to him. Robert grabbed my hand so tight I thought he might break it. Mrs. Rodriguez had her hand over her mouth in shock. This couldn't be happening, not to Marcus. Not after everything he'd been through. Not on what was supposed to be the best day of his life. Marcus looked out into the crowd and found our faces. The pain in his eyes was the same pain I'd seen in that photo 9 years earlier. All the progress we'd made, all the healing, all the confidence we'd built, it seemed to crumble in that moment. He was 8 years old again, being rejected by another family, told he wasn't good enough, told he didn't belong. Without a word, Marcus walked off the stage. He didn't run, didn't cause a scene. He just walked with as much dignity as he could muster, past his classmates, past the shocked faces of parents, past us. He kept walking until he disappeared into the school building. The principal cleared his throat and continued with the ceremony as if nothing had happened. "Sarah Turner," he called, and some girl stepped forward to receive the diploma and recognition that should have been Marcus's. The ceremony went on, but none of us were really there anymore. Our hearts had followed Marcus into that building. After what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 minutes, the ceremony ended. We rushed to find Marcus. He was sitting alone in the empty hallway outside his old English classroom, still wearing his cap and gown, staring at the floor. "Hey, buddy," Robert said softly, sitting down beside him on the floor. "Talk to us. What just happened in there?" Marcus looked up, and I could see he'd been crying. "I don't know, Dad." Everything was in order. My grades, my attendance, my community service hours. I checked everything twice. I was supposed to give the speech about never giving up, about how family can come from anywhere, about second chances. His voice broke on those last words. "There has to be an explanation," I said, though even as I said it, I felt a cold dread in my stomach. This has to be some kind of mistake. But as we sat there in that hallway, the three of us trying to make sense of what had just happened. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a mistake at all. The way the principal had looked at Marcus, the coldness in his voice, the way he'd pulled that diploma back. It felt deliberate. It felt cruel. Mrs. Rodriguez found us there and sat down with us on the floor. This dignified woman in her Sunday best, sitting cross-legged like a teenager. "Mijo," she said to Marcus, using the Spanish term of endearment she'd called him since he was 8. "This isn't over. We're going to figure out what happened here, and we're going to make it right." But Marcus just shook his head. "It doesn't matter," he said. "This is what always happens. Right when things are going good, right when I think I belong somewhere, something like this happens. Maybe I'm just not meant to have the same things other kids have." Those words cut through my heart like a knife. Here was this brilliant, kind, hard-working young man who had been told his whole life that he wasn't enough. And just when he had started to believe in himself, the world had proved him right. We spent the weekend trying to get answers. I called the school Monday morning and was told the principal was unavailable. I called Tuesday and was told he was in meetings. Wednesday, I showed up at the school unannounced and demanded to speak to someone about what had happened to my son. The secretary, a woman I'd known for 4 years through various school events, couldn't meet my eyes. "Mrs. Thompson," she said quietly, "I've been told not to discuss Marcus's situation." His situation? I felt my temper rising. His situation is that he's the valedictorian of his graduating class and was humiliated in front of the entire community for no apparent reason. "I want to know why." She glanced around nervously. "Maybe you should speak with the superintendent." So I called the superintendent's office, left messages, sent emails, asked for meetings. Every request was met with delay tactics and vague responses about reviewing the situation. It became clear that someone didn't want us to know what was really going on. Marcus spent those days in his room, barely eating, barely speaking. The colleges that had offered him scholarships started calling, asking about his graduation status, asking for final transcripts. We had to tell them we didn't know when those would be available. We watched helplessly as our son's future seemed to slip away. Robert and I barely slept that week. We'd lie awake at night trying to figure out what we could have missed, what we could have done differently. Had someone complained about Marcus's speech? Was there some paperwork issue we weren't aware of? Or was this something darker, discrimination against our adopted son, prejudice against a kid who had come from the foster system? By Thursday, I was ready to call a lawyer. By Friday, I was ready to call the local news station. This wasn't just about Marcus anymore. It was about justice, about standing up for kids who don't have anyone else to stand up for them. But then Friday evening came, and something happened that none of us could have predicted. It was about 6 o'clock, and Marcus was in his room doing what had become his routine that week, lying on his bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of why his world had fallen apart. Robert was grilling burgers in the backyard, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy. I was setting the table and preparing to have another conversation with Marcus about eating dinner with us instead of hiding in his room. That's when we heard it, the sound of a car pulling into our driveway. But this wasn't just any car. This was the deep, smooth purr of an expensive engine. Robert and I looked at each other through the kitchen window. A long, gleaming black limousine had just parked in front of our modest suburban home. "Are you expecting someone?" Robert asked, wiping his hands on a dish towel. I shook my head. Maybe they have the wrong address. But even as I said it, I could see the driver getting out, walking around to the passenger side and opening the door with the kind of professional courtesy you see in movies. A man stepped out. He was probably in his 70s, wearing an expensive suit that probably cost more than our monthly mortgage payment. He was tall, distinguished, with silver hair and the kind of presence that commanded attention. The man walked slowly up our front walkway, looking at our house with what seemed like recognition rather than confusion. This wasn't someone who was lost. This was someone who knew exactly where he was going. Robert and I met him at the front door before he could knock. Up close, he was even more impressive, the kind of man who had clearly lived an interesting life and had the wisdom lines around his eyes to prove it. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson?" he asked, his voice cultured and warm. "Yes," Robert replied cautiously. "Can we help you?" The man smiled, and something about that smile reminded me of Marcus. "My name is William Henderson. I believe you have a son named Marcus." My heart started racing. Was this about the graduation incident? Was Marcus in some kind of trouble we didn't know about? Yes, Marcus is our son. Is everything all right? Mr. Henderson's smile grew wider. Everything is more than all right, Mrs. Thompson. Is Marcus home? I'd very much like to meet him. I called upstairs for Marcus, my mind racing with possibilities. When he appeared at the top of the stairs and saw the distinguished stranger in our living room, his eyes widened with the same confusion Robert and I were feeling. Marcus, Mr. Henderson said, studying our son's face intently. You look exactly like your mother. The words hung in the air like a bomb that hadn't exploded yet. Marcus slowly walked down the stairs, never taking his eyes off this stranger who had just mentioned his mother, his birth mother. The woman who had given him up when he was 3 years old. The woman whose identity had always been sealed in confidential files. I'm sorry, Marcus said quietly, but I think you have me confused with someone else. My adoption records are sealed. Mr. Henderson reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope, thick with papers and photographs. Not anymore. They aren't. Marcus, my name is William Henderson, and I'm your grandfather. Your mother was my daughter, Elizabeth. The world seemed to stop spinning. Robert grabbed my hand. Marcus gripped the stair railing so tight his knuckles went white. This couldn't be happening. After 18 years of not knowing anything about Marcus's birth family, his grandfather was standing in our living room. That's impossible, Marcus whispered. My caseworker said my birth family couldn't be located. She said there were no relatives. Mr. Henderson nodded sadly. That's what I was told, too, son. For 15 years, I've been trying to find you. After your mother died, I searched everywhere. The state told me you had been placed with a family, but they wouldn't tell me where. They said it was in your best interest to have a clean break from the past. He sat down heavily in our living room chair, suddenly looking every one of his 70-plus years. I never stopped looking. I hired private investigators. I contacted every adoption agency in 3 states. I spent more money than I care to admit trying to find my grandson. Marcus slowly walked down the rest of the stairs and sat on the couch across from this man who claimed to be his grandfather. What happened to her? To my mother? Mr. Henderson's eyes filled with tears. Cancer. She was diagnosed when you were 2. She fought for over a year. But in the end, he wiped his eyes with a handkerchief. She made me promise to find you, to make sure you knew that you came from love, that you were wanted. The room was so quiet, you could hear the clock ticking on the mantel. Marcus stared at this stranger who was claiming to be his family, trying to process 15 years of questions, finally getting answers. How did you find me? Marcus asked. Mr. Henderson smiled through his tears. Your graduation? It was in the newspaper. Local adopted teen named valedictorian. There was a photo of you, and I knew immediately. You have your mother's eyes, her smile. I contacted the school to get your information. My blood ran cold. You contacted the school? Yes, I spoke with the principal, Mr. Davidson. I explained who I was, showed him the DNA test I had done years ago in case you were ever found. I asked him to help me contact you. Mr. Henderson paused, looking confused. He seemed quite resistant to the idea. He said that adopted children were better off not knowing about their birth families, that it would only cause confusion and pain. Robert and I looked at each other, pieces of a horrible puzzle starting to fall into place. What exactly did you tell Mr. Davidson? Robert asked. I told him I was your grandfather, that I had been searching for you for 15 years, that I wanted to be part of your life and help with your education. I mentioned that I had resources that could help you with college. Mr. Henderson looked between the 3 of us, sensing the tension in the room. Did I say something wrong? Marquez stood up abruptly, his face flushing with anger. He sabotaged my graduation. That's why I was rejected on stage. That's why I couldn't get my diploma or give my speech. He decided for me that I shouldn't know about you. The pieces were falling into place now, creating a picture so ugly it took my breath away. Principal Davidson had taken it upon himself to protect Marcus from his birth family by humiliating him publicly and potentially derailing his future. He had decided that this 18-year-old young man couldn't make his own choices about his family relationships. Mr. Henderson looked horrified. He rejected you at graduation, in front of everyone? Because I wanted to meet you. Marcus nodded, his jaw clenched tight. He made me feel like I didn't deserve to be there. like I was some kind of fraud who had been found out. This elegant, wealthy man who had been searching for his grandson for 15 years stood up with a look of righteous fury I had never seen before. "Where is this principal now?" "At home, I assume," I said. "It's Friday evening." Mr. Henderson walked to our front window and looked out at his limousine. "Harold," he called to his driver, "would you please find the home address for Mr. Davidson, the principal at Marcus's high school?" Within minutes, Harold had the address. Mr. Henderson turned to Marcus with an expression that was both gentle and determined. "Son, I know we just met, and I know you have no reason to trust me yet, but would you like to come with me to have a conversation with Mr. Davidson?" Marcus looked at Robert and me. "Mom? Dad? What do you think?" Robert put his arm around Marcus's shoulders. "I think," he said slowly, "that it's time Mr. Davidson answered for what he did to you. And I think we're all going together." And that's how, 1 week after the worst day of Marcus's life, we found ourselves sitting in the back of a limousine, driving through our small town toward a confrontation that would change everything. Marcus sat between Robert and me, holding the envelope of photos and documents that proved who his grandfather was. Mr. Henderson sat across from us, telling Marcus stories about his mother, filling in 15 years of blanks. "She was a teacher," Mr. Henderson said, showing Marcus a photo of a young woman who did indeed look remarkably like him. "Elementary school, she loved children so much, wanted a house full of them. When she found out she was pregnant with you, she was over the moon, even though your father had left when he found out." Marcus studied the photo intently. "She looks happy. You were the light of her life for 3 years. But when she got sick, when she realized she wasn't going to make it, she wanted to make sure you had a family who could give you everything she couldn't." Mr. Henderson looked at Robert and me with genuine warmth. "She would be so proud of the people who raised you. She would be so grateful." As we pulled up to Principal Davidson's house, I felt a mixture of nervousness and satisfaction. This man had hurt my son, had used his position of authority to make a decision that wasn't his to make. He had robbed Marcus of one of the most important moments of his life because of his own prejudices and assumptions. Mr. Henderson straightened his tie and looked at all of us seriously. "Let me handle this. I've been in business for 50 years. I know how to have difficult conversations." We walked up to Mr. Davidson's front door as a family, Marcus's adoptive parents, his newly found grandfather, and Harold, the limousine driver who had apparently appointed himself as additional moral support. When Mr. Davidson opened his door and saw all of us standing there, the color drained from his face. "Mr. Henderson," he stammered, "I wasn't expecting. How did you find my address?" "Mr. Davidson," Mr. Henderson said with the kind of calm authority that comes from decades of running a successful business, "I think we need to discuss what happened at graduation last week." Mr. Davidson glanced nervously at Marcus, at Robert and me, at the limousine parked in his driveway that was drawing stares from his neighbors. "Perhaps we should speak privately." "No," Mr. Henderson said firmly. "Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of Marcus's family. After all, this concerns all of us." We were invited into Mr. Davidson's living room, though it was clear he would rather have hidden under a rock than have this conversation. Marcus sat in the chair closest to the door, as if he might need to escape at any moment. I couldn't blame him. This was the man who had humiliated him in front of everyone he knew. "Now then," Mr. Henderson began, "I'd like you to explain to me why you prevented my grandson from receiving his diploma and giving his valedictorian speech." Mr. Davidson shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Mr. Henderson, I was trying to protect Marcus. You have to understand, adopted children need stability. They need to feel secure in their placement. When birth family members suddenly appear, it can be very disruptive." "Disruptive?" Marcus's voice was quiet but intense. "Do you know what was disruptive? Being rejected in front of my entire graduating class. Being made to feel like I didn't belong there after 4 years of perfect grades. Being told I couldn't have my diploma for reasons no one would explain." Mr. Davidson looked like he wanted to disappear. "Marcus, I was acting in what I thought were your best interests. Studies show that contact with birth families can cause identity confusion in adoptees." Mr. Henderson leaned forward. "Mr. Davidson, Marcus is 18 years old. He's not a child. He's about to go to college. He's perfectly capable of making his own decisions about his family relationships. You had no right to make that choice for him. Furthermore, Mr. Henderson continued, his voice getting colder, you had no right to sabotage his graduation based on your personal opinions about adoption and family relationships. You used your position of authority to punish a student for something completely outside of his control. Robert cleared his throat. We've been trying all week to get answers from the school about what happened. No one would tell us anything. We were starting to think Marcus had done something wrong. Marcus did nothing wrong, Mr. Davidson admitted quietly. His grades were perfect. His attendance was perfect. He completed all requirements for graduation. Then why? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Why would you humiliate him like that? Why would you take away something he had earned? Mr. Davidson was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because I was adopted too. And when my birth mother found me when I was 19, it destroyed my relationship with my adoptive parents. They felt betrayed, like I was choosing her over them. It tore our family apart. The room went silent. This wasn't just about prejudice or power trips. This was about a man projecting his own painful experience onto a situation that had nothing to do with him. Marcus looked at Mr. Davidson with something that might have been pity. Mr. Davidson, I'm sorry that happened to you, but that was your story. This is mine. And you took away my choice to write my own ending. Mr. Henderson nodded approvingly at Marcus. Son, you're wise beyond your years. Mr. Davidson, your personal experiences, while unfortunate, don't give you the right to make decisions for other people's families. Mr. Davidson looked around the room at all of us, at Marcus sitting tall and confident despite everything he'd been through, at Robert and me flanking our son with unwavering support, at Mr. Henderson, who had spent 15 years and probably a fortune trying to find his grandson. You're right, he said finally. I made a terrible mistake. I let my own issues cloud my judgment, and I hurt a student who deserved better. He looked directly at Marcus. I'm sorry. I'm truly, deeply sorry. Marcus studied his principal's face, looking for sincerity. After a moment, he nodded. I accept your apology, Mr. Davidson, but I need you to fix this. I need my diploma, and I need my transcripts sent to the colleges that have offered me scholarships. Of course, Mr. Davidson said quickly. I'll take care of everything first thing Monday morning. And Marcus, if you're willing, I'd like you to give your valedictorian speech at the senior awards ceremony next month. The whole community should hear what you have to say. Marcus looked at his grandfather, then at Robert and me. I'd like that, but I want to rewrite parts of it. I have some new things to say about family and forgiveness and second chances. As we prepared to leave Mr. Davidson's house, Mr. Henderson turned back to the principal one more time. Mr. Davidson, I hope you'll consider getting some counseling to work through your own adoption issues. Your students deserve an administrator who won't let personal baggage affect their educational experience. Mr. Davidson nodded, looking genuinely chastened. You're right. I will. The ride back to our house in the limousine was completely different from the tense trip there. Marcus was animated, asking his grandfather questions about his mother, about their family history, about what his life had been like. Mr. Henderson answered every question with patience and obvious joy at finally being able to share these stories with his grandson. She kept a journal, Mr. Henderson told Marcus, writing letters to you for when you got older. She wanted you to know how much she loved you, how hard it was to let you go, how much she hoped you would have a wonderful life. Marcus wiped tears from his eyes. Can I read them? They're yours, Mr. Henderson said. Everything she left behind is yours. Her books, her jewelry, her photos. I've kept it all, hoping someday I'd be able to give it to you. When we got back to our house, Mr. Henderson asked Harold to bring in several boxers from the trunk of the limousine. These are just a few of your mother's things, A told Marcus. There's much more at home. Marcus opened the first box with reverent care. Inside were photo albums, books, a jewelry box, and dozens of letters tied with ribbon, the letters his mother had written to him before she died. He held them like they were made of gold. There's something else, Mr. Henderson said, reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out an official-looking document. Your mother set up a trust fund for your education before she died. She wanted to make sure that if you were ever found, you'd be able to go to college. Marcus looked at the document, his eyes widening. This says there's enough money for medical school." Mr. Henderson smiled. "Your mother always hoped you might become a doctor. She thought you had healing hands. Even as a toddler, you were always trying to take care of hurt animals, putting band-aids on your stuffed animals." Robert and I looked at each other in amazement. Our son, who had overcome so much, who had worked so hard for partial scholarships to college, now had the means to pursue any dream he wanted. But more than that, he had answers to questions that had haunted him his whole life. "I can't accept this," Marcus said quietly. "It's too much." Mr. Henderson knelt down in front of Marcus's chair, taking his grandson's hands in his own. "Son, this isn't charity. This is your inheritance. This is what your mother wanted for you. She worked 2 jobs while she was pregnant to put money into this account. She sold her car, her jewelry, everything she had of value. This money represents every hope and dream she had for your future." Marcus looked at Robert and me with uncertainty. "Mom, Dad, what do you think?" I reached over and touched his cheek. "Sweetheart, this doesn't change anything between us. You're still our son. You'll always be our son. But this is a gift from your birth mother, and I think you should honor her memory by accepting it." Robert nodded. "She wanted you to have every opportunity in life. We want that for you, too." That evening, after Mr. Henderson had gone back to his hotel with promises to stay in town for a few more days, the 3 of us sat around our kitchen table sorting through the boxers of Marcus's mother's belongings. Each item was a piece of a puzzle Marcus had never been able to complete. There were photos of Elizabeth as a child, as a teenager, as a young teacher. There were report cards and school projects she had kept from her own childhood. There were books she had loved, recipes she had written down, letters from friends and family members who had loved her. And there were the letters she had written to Marcus. We decided he should read those privately first, but he asked us to stay nearby in case he needed us. He sat on the living room couch, Robert and I in chairs nearby, as he opened the first letter. After a few minutes of reading in silence, Marcus looked up at us with tears streaming down his face. "She says she's sorry," he whispered. "She says she's sorry she can't keep me, but she wants me to have a better life than she can give me. She says she hopes whoever adopts me will love me as much as she does." He kept reading, occasionally sharing parts of the letters with us. Elizabeth had written about his first words, his first steps, his favorite foods and toys. She had written about how proud she was when he learned to read, how he would sit in her lap and make up stories about the pictures in books. "Listen to this," Marcus said, his voice stronger now. She wrote, "Marcus, my sweet boy, I don't know what kind of man you'll become, but I hope you'll be the kind of person who helps others. I hope you'll use your intelligence and your kind heart to make the world a better place. I hope you'll know that even though I can't be there to watch you grow up, I love you more than all the stars in the sky." Robert got up and sat on the arm of the couch, putting his hand on Marcus's shoulder. "She sounds like she was an amazing woman. She would be so proud of the man you've become. She would love you guys too," Marcus said, looking at both of us. In one of the letters, she talks about praying every night that I would find parents who would love me and believe in me and help me reach my potential. She got her wish. Over the next few days, Mr. Henderson visited every day. He took us out to dinner at the nicest restaurant in town. He met Mrs. Rodriguez and thanked her for placing Marcus with us. He went with Marcus to visit his old teachers and thank them for their support over the years. On Monday morning, true to his word, Principal Davidson called Marcus personally to apologize again and to let him know that his diploma and transcripts were ready for pickup. He also formally invited Marcus to give his valedictorian speech at the senior awards ceremony. The day of the awards ceremony arrived, and the same football stadium that had been the site of Marcus's humiliation was now going to be the stage for his triumph. The entire community had heard about what had happened at graduation and about the arrival of Marcus's grandfather. The local newspaper had written a story about the reunion and about Marcus's plans to attend medical school. Marcus had rewritten his speech completely. Instead of the original speech about second chances in family, he had written something new about forgiveness, about not letting other people's fears and limitations define your story, about the complicated beauty of families that are formed by choice rather than birth. As he walked up to the podium that evening, wearing the same cap and gown that he had worn 3 weeks earlier, I held my breath. This was his moment to reclaim what had been taken from him, to show the world that rejection and setbacks couldn't break his spirit. "My name is Marcus Thompson," he began, his voice clear and strong. "3 weeks ago, I stood on this stage and was told I wasn't good enough to receive my diploma. Tonight, I stand here not just as your valedictorian, but as a young man who has learned that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can lead to the best thing that happens to you." The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. "I want to talk to you tonight about family, about the difference between the family you're born into and the family you choose, and about how sometimes, if you're really lucky, you get to have both. I was adopted when I was 8 years old by Robert and Sarah Thompson. They didn't have to love me, but they chose to. They didn't have to believe in me when I struggled with trust issues and nightmares, but they chose to. They didn't have to sit through countless parent-teacher conferences and basketball games and science fairs, but they chose to. And when I was rejected on this very stage, 3 weeks ago, they didn't abandon me or tell me to get over it. They chose to fight for me." Marcus paused, looking out at Robert and me in the audience. "But this story isn't just about adoptive family. It's also about birth family and about how love doesn't have an expiration date. 3 weeks ago, I met my grandfather for the first time. He had been searching for me for 15 years. 15 years. He never gave up hope that someday he would find me and be able to tell me about my birth mother, who loved me so much that she made the hardest decision a parent can make." The audience was completely captivated now. This wasn't the typical graduation speech about bright futures and following your dreams. This was raw, real, and deeply personal. "I learned that my birth mother, Elizabeth, died of cancer when I was young. But before she died, she wrote me letters, dozens of them, and in those letters she told me that she hoped I would find parents who would love me unconditionally, who would help me become the best version of myself, who would support my dreams no matter what. She got her wish." Marcus's voice grew stronger, more confident. "Principal Davidson made a decision 3 weeks ago based on fear. Fear that knowing about my birth family would somehow diminish the relationship I have with my adoptive family. But love isn't pie. There isn't less of it when you share it with more people. There's more of it." He looked directly at Principal Davidson, who was sitting in the front row with the other school administrators. "Mr. Davidson, I forgive you. I understand that you were trying to protect me based on your own painful experience. But I want you to know that having both my adoptive family and my birth family in my life doesn't divide my heart. It multiplies it." The audience erupted in applause. I looked around and saw people wiping tears from their eyes, nodding in agreement, moved by this young man's wisdom and grace. "I want to leave you with this thought," Marcus continued as the applause died down. "Life is going to knock you down. People are going to disappoint you. Doors are going to slam in your face. But if you surround yourself with people who choose to love you, who choose to believe in you, who choose to fight for you, then you can survive anything. You can overcome anything. You can become anything." He paused, looking out at the sea of faces in the stadium. "To my adoptive parents, Robert and Sarah Thompson, thank you for choosing me every single day for 10 years. To my grandfather, William Henderson, thank you for never giving up on finding me. To my birth mother, Elizabeth, who I'll never get to meet, but whose love I carry with me every day, thank you for the ultimate act of love, letting me go so I could have a better life." Marcus took a deep breath. "And to my classmates, to this community that has supported me and shaped me, thank you for being part of my story. I'm going to medical school in the fall, and someday I hope to come back here as Dr. Marcus Thompson to serve the community that raised me." The standing ovation that followed lasted for nearly 5 minutes. People were cheering, crying, hugging each other. Marcus stood at that podium with dignity and grace, having transformed what could have been a bitter moment of revenge into a powerful message of forgiveness and hope. As he walked off the stage, diploma finally in hand, he was mobbed by classmates, teachers, and community members who wanted to congratulate him and thank him for his words. But the first people to reach him were Robert and me, followed closely by Mr. Henderson and Mrs. Rodriguez. "I'm so proud of you," I whispered as I hugged him tight. "That was the most beautiful speech I've ever heard." Mr. Henderson had tears in his eyes. "Your mother would be so proud," he said, embracing Marcus. "You have her heart, her wisdom, her grace, under pressure. Principal Davidson approached our group. Marcus, he said quietly, thank you. Your speech tonight taught me more about family and forgiveness than I've learned in 20 years of education. I'm sorry it took your pain for me to learn that lesson. Marcus extended his hand to shake Mr. Davidson's. We all make mistakes, Mr. Davidson. What matters is what we do after we realize we've made them. Later that evening, we had a celebration dinner at the nicest restaurant in town. Mr. Henderson had insisted on treating not just our family, but also Senora Rodriguez, Marcus's favorite teachers, and even Principal Davidson and his wife. It was a table full of people who had all played a role in Marcus's journey, people who had chosen to love him, support him, believe in him, and yes, even people who had made mistakes but were working to make them right. As we sat around that table, sharing stories and laughter, I looked at Marcus and marveled at the young man he had become, not just despite the challenges he had faced, but because of them. Every rejection, every setback, every moment of pain had shaped him into someone with extraordinary compassion, resilience, and wisdom. I have an announcement, Mr. Henderson said, standing up with his wine glass. Marcus, I know you're planning to attend State University for pre-med, and that's a fine school, but I'd like to make you an offer. Harvard Medical School was where your mother always dreamed of going. She was accepted, actually, but couldn't attend because she was pregnant with you. I'd like to pay for you to attend Harvard, if you're interested. In her honor. The table went silent. Marcus stared at his grandfather in shock. Grandpa, that's incredible. But I already committed to State. I've already spoken with the Dean of Admissions at Harvard, Mr. Henderson said with a smile. When I told him your story and showed him your grades and test scores, he was very interested in meeting you. It seems they have a spot in their incoming class for exceptional students with compelling personal stories. Robert leaned over to Marcus. Son, this is your choice. We'll support whatever you decide. State University is a great school, and you'd do wonderfully there. But Harvard... That's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Marcus looked around the table at all the people who had believed in him, supported him, and loved him. Can I have some time to think about it? Of course, Mr. Henderson said. Take all the time you need. But even as he said it, I could see the excitement building in Marcus's eyes. This was bigger than just a school choice. This was about honoring his birth mother's dreams while building on the foundation his adoptive family had given him. This was about taking everything he had learned about resilience and second chances and using it to become the doctor he had always dreamed of being. 3 days later, Marcus made his decision. He called Harvard and accepted their offer. He also called State University and explained the situation, and they were gracious about releasing him from his commitment, especially when they heard his story. The months that followed were a whirlwind of preparation. Mr. Henderson helped Marcus get settled in Boston, making sure he had everything he needed for his new adventure, but he was careful not to overshadow Robert and me. He understood that we were Marcus's parents, and he respected the relationship we had built with our son. The night before Marcus left for Harvard, the three of us sat on his bed, surrounded by boxers and suitcases, talking about everything and nothing. He was nervous but excited, ready for the next chapter of his life, but sad to leave the only real home he had ever known. Are you sure you're ready for this? I asked, smoothing down his hair the way I had when he was 8 years old and scared of thunderstorms. Marcus smiled. Mom, I've been getting ready for this my whole life. Every family that rejected me, every foster home that didn't work out. Every night I went to bed wondering if I'd ever belong anywhere. It was all preparing me for this moment. I'm ready. Robert pulled out a small wrapped package. We have something for you. Inside was a simple silver necklace with a small pendant that had 3 interlinking circles. 1 circle for your birth family, Robert explained. 1 for us, and 1 for the family you'll create someday. They're all connected, all part of who you are. Marcus put on the necklace and hugged both of us. I love you guys so much. Thank you for never giving up on me. Thank you for showing me what unconditional love looks like. Thank you for fighting for me when I couldn't fight for myself. We drove Marcus to the airport the next morning, along with Mr. Henderson, who was taking the same flight to Boston to help him get settled. At the security checkpoint, we said our goodbyes, knowing that our little boy was leaving, but our son would always be part of our family. As we watched him walk through security, turning back to wave at us one more time. I felt a mixture of pride and sadness that every parent feels when their child leaves home. But I also felt something else. Gratitude. Gratitude that 10 years earlier we had said yes to a scared, broken, 80-year-old boy. Gratitude that love really can heal the deepest wounds. Gratitude that sometimes when one door closes, another one opens in ways more beautiful than we ever could have imagined. Marcus excelled at Harvard, just as we knew he would. He called us every week, sharing stories about his classes, his friends, his dreams for the future. He spent summers doing medical mission work in underserved communities, using his gifts to help people who reminded him of his younger self, people who needed someone to believe in them. Mr. Henderson became a regular part of our family. He spent holidays with us, attended Marcus's college graduation, and never missed an opportunity to tell anyone who would listen about his brilliant grandson. But he never tried to replace Robert and me as Marcus's parents. Instead, he added to Marcus's support system, giving him even more people who loved him unconditionally. During Marcus's 3rd year of medical school, he met Sarah. Yes, another Sarah, which made family gatherings interesting. She was studying to be a pediatric nurse, and she shared Marcus's passion for helping children who had been through trauma. When he brought her home to meet us, I knew immediately that she was the one. She looked at Marcus the way Robert had looked at me 25 years earlier, like he was the missing piece of her heart. They were married the summer before Marcus's final year of medical school. In a beautiful ceremony in our backyard under the tree where Marcus used to sit and read when he first came to us, Mr. Henderson walked him down the aisle alongside Robert and me. Mrs. Rodriguez, now retired, was there with tears of joy. Even Principal Davidson attended, having become an unexpected friend over the years as he worked through his own adoption issues and counseling. Marcus's birth mother, Elizabeth, was honored too. He carried her photo with him and mentioned her in his vow, thanking her for the ultimate act of love that had led him to his family. All of his families. Dr. Marcus Thompson graduated from Harvard Medical School, magna cum laude. He chose to specialize in pediatrics, specifically working with children in foster care and adoption situations. He understood their fears, their hopes, their need to belong somewhere. Today, 5 years later, Marcus runs a free clinic for underserved children in our hometown. He and Sarah have 2 beautiful children of their own, and they're in the process of adopting a sibling group of 3 from foster care. Because Marcus understands something that not everyone does. That family isn't about DNA or blood or biology. Family is about choice. It's about showing up. It's about never giving up on someone, even when they've given up on themselves. Mr. Henderson, now 80, is grandpa to Marcus's children and soon-to-be grandpa to the 3 little ones they're adopting. He set up college funds for all of them, just like Elizabeth had done for Marcus. The circle of love and generosity continues. Sometimes I think about that day when Marcus was rejected at graduation, when it felt like our world was falling apart. I think about how devastated we all were, how hopeless everything seemed. And I'm reminded that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can lead to the best thing that happens to you. If Marcus hadn't been rejected that day, Mr. Henderson might never have found him. Marcus might never have learned about his birth, mother's love, and sacrifice. He might never have had the resources to attend Harvard Medical School. He might never have had the platform to share his story and inspire others. That rejection, as painful as it was actually a redirection. It was the universe's way of saying, we have bigger plans for this young man than anyone can imagine. Marcus's story has been shared in magazines and newspapers. He's spoken at adoption conferences and medical schools. He's written articles about the importance of supporting children in foster care. But his greatest accomplishment isn't his medical degree or his successful clinic or his speaking engagements. His greatest accomplishment is the family he's created, the biological children who will grow up knowing they're loved, the adopted children who will learn that families come in all shapes and sizes, the patients who see in him proof that their past doesn't have to define their future. Every year, on graduation day, Marcus goes back to his old high school, not as a bitter former student seeking revenge, but as a successful alumnus who speaks to current students about resilience, about forgiveness, about the power of second chances. He tells them that rejection is just redirection, that closed doors often lead to open windows, that their current circumstances don't determine their future possibilities. And every year, there are kids in that audience who need to hear exactly that message. Kids who are aging out of foster care. Kids who feel like they don't belong anywhere. Kids who have been told they're not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy enough to dream big dreams. Marcus looks at those kids and sees himself at 8 years old, arriving at our house with nothing but a garbage bag full of clothes and a heart full of hurt. He sees himself at 17, working 2 jobs to save money for college because he was determined to make something of himself. He sees himself at 18, standing on that graduation stage, feeling like his world was ending. And then he tells them the rest of the story. He tells them about love that chooses you. He tells them about families that fight for you. He tells them about grandfathers who search for 15 years and never give up. He tells them about birth mothers who make impossible sacrifices because they love you that much. He tells them that their story isn't over yet, that the next chapter might be better than anything they've ever imagined, that sometimes you have to get lost before you can be found, that sometimes you have to be rejected before you can be redirected to something better than you ever dreamed possible. As I finish telling you Marcus's story, I want you to remember this. If you're going through rejection right now, if doors are slamming in your face, if you feel like you don't belong anywhere, your story isn't over yet. Sometimes the worst day of your life is just the first day of your best life. Sometimes the people who reject you are actually doing you a favor by getting out of the way of the people who will choose you. Sometimes what feels like an ending is actually a beginning in disguise. Marcus's story started with abandonment and rejection. It included foster care, uncertainty, and pain. But it didn't end there. It included adoption, love, hard work, and dreams coming true. It included birth family rediscovered, educational opportunities beyond imagination, and a career dedicated to helping others. Your story can have that kind of ending too. Not the same story. Your story will be uniquely yours. But the same kind of redemption. The same kind of triumph. The same kind of proof that love really can conquer all. That families really can be chosen. That second chances really can change everything. The limousine that pulled up to Marcus's school that day wasn't just carrying his grandfather. It was carrying 15 years of love, a lifetime of opportunities, and a future brighter than anyone could have imagined. What's pulling up in your driveway? What opportunities are waiting for you on the other side of this rejection? What family members are searching for you? What dreams are waiting to come true? Don't give up. Your story isn't over yet. The best chapters might still be waiting to be written. Marcus always ends his speeches the same way, with a quote from one of his birth mother's letters. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let go, trusting that love will find a way to bring you back together when the time is right. Love found a way. It always does. And that, my friends, is why sometimes rejection is just redirection in disguise. Sometimes the door that closes in your face is protecting you from settling for less than you deserve. Sometimes the people who don't choose you are making room for the people who will. Trust the process. Trust the journey. Trust that your story, like Marcus's story, is being written by hands far wiser and more loving than you can imagine. The limousine is coming. Your time is coming. Your family is coming. Your dreams are coming. Don't give up. The best is yet to come.